Hello fellow wanderers and welcome back to the channel. Today we are heading to Chichen Itza, the most famous Mayan ruins here in all of Yucatan. It is just before 9 o'clock and we're just over here in the center square for a few minutes, and we're headed over to the Colectivos, which is just next to the bus station, to head over to Chichen Itza. I've read different things talking about how the ADO buses goes there and back, but the time isn't great because it doesn't leave Valladolid until 11 o'clock or something, so it gets there when all the other tourist buses do. So my plan with the Colectivos is to get there before the tourist buses show up, to give myself an hour or so before it gets too crazy, although I'm expecting it to be very busy all day anyway. And so let's get going, hop on a Colectivo and get to Chichen Itza. So to get to the Colectivos, there's the bus station there, the ADO bus stop. What you want to do is you want to make sure you're on Calle 39, which is where the bus station is, and then walk up between 46 and 48, and on the right hand side you should see a sign for the Colectivos to Chichen Itza. And we'll just go in and grab one there, and whichever one's available and ready to go, we'll be off. This is where you want to head to, right in through here. Even got the executive seat in the front. 40 pesos for one way, and I could have bought return, but I'll just get the return on the way back. And we're going to head in momentarily because we are full. So we have arrived at Chichen Itza. Colectivo was great. It was 40 pesos. Nice modern minibus with great air conditioning, and had a great conversation with Francisco, my new friend here in Valladolid. So we're gonna head down to the ticket booth and grab our tickets. This place is banana pancakes busy, but I expected that, so I'm gonna try and just do this as efficiently, I guess, as possible. But you can see here all the tour buses are already here. It's only 10 a.m. and all the buses are here already. So on the Colectivo ride over, he was saying that it used to be the case where a lot of the tourist buses wouldn't show up until 10:30, 11 o'clock. He says, but now they arrive pretty early in the morning, and they're usually like some of the first ones here. So just keep that in mind as well. So it'll be interesting to see how busy it is now, if it continues to get even crazier, and so on. But this is so far a very different experience than most of the other sites that I've been to. One point of note before I forget later, where we get dropped off at the Colectivos, he said that they come back and they depart from there every 30 minutes or so. And it's also same price, 40 pesos, all the way back to Valladolid, which is great because it's less than $3. All right, let's get in here and get a ticket and get going. So we are in. Just to kind of recap the process here. So when you arrive, come up to the ticket booth, there's 4 windows. The first 2, numbers 1 and 2, you pick up your entrance ticket, which is the 95 peso fee, which is like the park fee, I guess. After you get that, you then have to go to windows 3 and 4 to pay the state tax, which is the larger of the 2. So the first ticket to get in is 95 pesos, and then you pay the state surcharge, which is 548 pesos. So all told, it's like 640. And then if you're using one of these, what you have to do then is also go over to a separate window just before you go through the gates, and in there you pay an additional 60 pesos for recording equipment. Same as the other places. Uxmal was the same way. And one thing I'd recommend too is that keep your video recording ticket handy, because you will get asked for it a lot. Now that all the administrative part is out of the way, let's head into the park. So we're just in the main road here now, leading into the park. Lots of vendors where you can pick up just about anything you want. Beautiful green space around here though. All the way in, and so far, at least here in the shade, not so hot, which is nice. I have to fully admit, I guess, I was a little bit apprehensive about coming to Chichen Itza just because of the crowds. So, you know, having been to Edzna and Uxmal and, you know, other places that, you know, were amazing and breathtaking in many ways, but didn't have these kinds of crowds. You know, when I was at Edzna, there was more iguanas than people. That is certainly not the case here at Chichen Itza, where it will be wall-to-wall tourists, wall-to-wall vendors. So I was probably 50-50 this morning, but then at the end of it all, I decided, you know what, it'd be stupid not to come and check it out. So here we are. We're gonna head over towards the main part of the ruins here, and we'll have a look around. We're coming up to one of the most famous buildings in all of the Mayan region. It is also, I believe, for most people, as you come up the main road, it is also the first building that you will come across as well. Only a few tourists here, as you can see. A bit of background here on Chichen Itza, and it was one of the regional capitals of the Mayan Empire, and existed from about 600 AD through to about around 1000 AD or so for 400 years roughly. And it was also one of the largest Mayan cities in the entire Mayan civilization. So of course your most famous place here in Chichen Itza is this temple, and you've seen it everywhere, I'm sure. You've seen pictures, and it's on t-shirts, and it's on, from what I've seen today, on everybody's Instagram. But yeah, I mean, this place is a huge park with so much more to see other than just that one building. I think it's nicknamed El Castillo, the castle in English. But, you know, taking even just a look around from where I'm standing, you know, there's so much more here to see. And so I thought it might be more interesting to kind of take a walk around the outside and see some of the other things here. Because, yeah, there's a lot of people here. But I suspect that, from my hunches, is that a lot of them are all kind of congregated right in this kind of center area here. So we're going to take a little walk around and see what else we can find. And yeah, let's enjoy our time at Chichen Itza. So we just made our way over here to kind of a three-part section. So this first building here, which is this sort of the side of it, but it was too busy at the front, is what's known as the Temple of the Jaguar. And if you look at the top, right up there, you can see that there are carvings of jaguars in the blocks, and even some of the original tint still exists up there, some red and some blues as well along that edge. And then over here is something that we should be familiar with if you've watched some of my other videos at this point. So this is one of the Mayan ball courts. This is also, I believe, the biggest and best preserved of all the ball courts. And let's take a walk down. So some of the other ones we've seen and some of the other sites were quite small. I mean, they were meant for 2 or 3 people per team kind of thing. But this one here is far larger. And you can see as I'm walking down here towards the center. And we've still got the stone circles up on the walls there. And both of them being intact is, I think, might be unique to here. But this is a huge court here by comparison to the other ones. Everyone's yelling and screaming because everything echoes. Which of course it does. It's a big, square, stone-faced place. So if we go over here, there are some carvings along the walls here of various glyphs. Which you can see all along the wall here. And they continue all the way down that way. And they're also over there as well. And so as we make our way down here to the other end of the ball court, we're approaching what's known as, and what I think is the best name of any temple that I've seen anywhere in Mexico. This is what's known as the Temple of the Bearded Man. Viva Mexico! And so, when this was originally discovered, there was actually a statue on the little platform at the top of the stairs. I don't know if it says. I'm going to have a little walk up here because I think there may still be a carving on the back wall that you can kind of make out. But it's pretty high up from where we are, and like these walls, the wall that goes around this court is, 6 feet roughly, I would say. So up there on the back wall, there's all kinds of carvings and stuff. I'll get a picture of it with my camera on my phone as well and post it here, so you can see a bit closer up some of the detail that's up there as well. So we're just going to make our way around here. Just wanted to show the head at the end of the row here, and you can see it kind of all the carvings all along continue the design as well, which is pretty cool. Let's get around here. So we've just come around from that Temple of the Bearded Man around the backside here, and we're just near what's known as the skull platform. Plataforma de los Cráneos, and you can see why it's named that, as the entire wall is carved with left-facing skulls. And so what's interesting about this is that this is actually different. Would have been used for impaling skulls on top of. So you can see here in the pictures that a lot of these have what looks like a line through them. So that would have been like a stake, and they would have been impaled on the stake vertically. In some other places around the Maya territory, they were actually impaled horizontally instead of vertically. So this was supposedly unique to Chichen Itza. But even here on the side, you can see where the skulls were down there. As you come around this side, there's definitely more intricate and detailed carvings along this wall as well. So here's another shot of that platform of the skulls. And then we come over here. So all those skulls that were carved in the rock, you can actually see they all continue on that wall there as well. And then there's some more detailed carvings like we saw over there on the side here of Mayan men in full regalia carrying beheaded heads. So we're just next to the platform of the skulls, and this one here is what's known as the platform of the eagles and jaguars. It's similar to the platform of Venus, which we're going to walk by here in a few minutes, but this one was heavily adorned with carvings of, you guessed it, eagles and jaguars. There's the Temple of the Jaguars over there where we started earlier for a reference point. And there's the main castle pyramid. Its Mayan name was Kukulkan. It was, it was founded back, I believe, around 1905 by some explorers. And they spent the next 20 years after that, once they were granted permission from the Mexican government, they spent some 20 years here excavating the grounds of Chichen Itza. Now, so the story goes is that after that 20 years were up, the Mexican government then tried to arrest the chief archaeologist that was part of the project doing the restorations, saying that he had stolen artifacts from the grounds here at Chichen Itza. And there was never, I don't believe there was ever any proof of that. But it certainly tarnished what would have been, an amazing 2-decade-long project here to try and restore what was lost. We'll try and make our way down here to the platform of Venus. Just trying to work my way down here through all of the vendors. So we're just around the back side here of what's known as the Temple of Venus. And your first inclination might be that would be Venus, the god of love, and you'd be like, well, that's weird because that wouldn't make any sense. And no, it's actually Venus the planet. Obviously with the Mayans, they were very well versed in astronomy. They would use the sky and constellations for directions. For much of their calendar is based on the sky movements, and so Venus, obviously being one of the brightest objects in the sky, is featured here. And this one is a little bit different than some of the other ones in that if you look at the very far left edge here, you can actually see a carving here of the circle, and this would have been like the shine of Venus in the sky. And it was over on this side as well, but that side has broken off a little bit. When they excavated the inside, they actually found a tomb inside filled with orbs, which most seem to agree that were probably ceremonial versions of the planet Venus. You can see here again the kind of like a star-shaped design here on the side, and you can still see some of the pigment here as well, some of the blue. There's the blue and red pigments, and then on the other end is the design of Venus on the side of the temple. So I'm just making my way down to the cenote that's here on site. So you basically come down behind where the Temple of Venus is, and then there's a path, a raised road here, which is pretty standard from what we've seen in a lot of the other locations as well. you see these raised roads that were basically freeways between the different Mayan cities or villages. And from what I understand, the higher the road was off the ground, the higher the status. So I don't know if like the higher up ones basically means that it's like a freeway, or if it's reserved for, you know, the higher ups in the organizations. But this one here is probably, you know, I would say just looking ahead 4 to 5 feet above the ground level. So we're gonna head down this way through all of the sellers and vendors and have a look at the cenote that's down here. So I've made my way up to the sacred cenote here at Chichen Itza, and it is quite the spectacle. So the water that's here is about 20 meters deep, and when they went and excavated or dove in it to basically see what was at the bottom, they found all kinds of stuff. Jewelry, jade, you know, different types of artifacts, and they found the remains of a lot of people. So it is believed that while this was both a source of water for Chichen Itza, it was also a sacrificial cenote as well, so that if, you know, times were bad or whatever, they would often perform ceremonies here, and usually resulted, you know, with people being involved. It is, I would say, probably about 70 to 80 feet in diameter across that way. And yeah, it is quite the spot here, up just sort of at the end of the Chichen Itza Park. I guess if you want to think about it from a directional standpoint, we're sort of at the north end up here. And you can see they're doing work on restoration. There's a building right there on the edge of the cenote, and there's some other stuff over there too. But yeah, and it's also up this way a nice break from the crowds. It's overcast here a little bit at the moment, but there's lots of trees here to kind of get under and get cooled off, and very few people compared to the rest of the park from where we started earlier. So yeah, it's a really nice spot up here. I would say this might be one of my favorite spots in the whole of the area so far. So from here, we're actually going to head back down towards the main area where the El Castillo pyramid is, because there's more there, and then there's more to the south of that as well, which I definitely want to go check out. There's a map actually right here, so this kind of shows you this is where we are here at the moment. You come down this pathway into the main area, so there's the main pyramid temple there. We saw the pelota field with the temples at both ends, the platform of Venus. So now we're just going to swing back down this way, down through here as well. So let's get going. So we're just up here at the other end now, and we're just standing in front of the Temple of the Large Tables, it was called. And the reason it was called that was that there was carvings at the top that had like a table shape and men holding them up underneath like the legs of a table. So that's where it got the name from. You see it's partially restored here with some of the steps about halfway up, but it is no match for what stands next to it. So this next massive temple here in front of us is what was known as the Temple of the Warriors. And you can see that it is one of the larger buildings here at Chichen Itza, and one of the, I would say, more unique looking as well. So all of these columns all have carvings of warriors on the front that were all different. There was one reference I read where the warriors that were carved on these were, accomplished warriors for the Chichen Itza city and battles and those types of things. They would be memorialized here at this temple. And these squared off columns are different from what we're going to see down here in a minute, which are more rounded and with a different building altogether. So directly next to the Temple of the Warriors, what we have here next is the group of 1,000 columns. And the group of 1,000 columns is actually 3 separate groups of columns, but for the purposes of this, it is one large group split into 3. And so the belief is that this would have all supported a roof on top of this building, so it would have been a huge complex here. Now, most of these columns, I don't believe any of them, in fact, I don't believe any of these columns had any specific carvings on them. They're more utilitarian, but I'll take a walk around the perimeter here so you can see the rest.
50 pesos, amigos. Señorita, México.
So the columns, I believe, end on the front side here, and then you can walk over in through here to get an idea of the rest of the complex. So this structure, as I mentioned, had sort of 3 distinct parts to it. There was the section outside this wall with the columns, and then there's more columns up here as well. And it's a mixture, half of which, at the front half, was part of the warrior temple, because it had the carvings on them for the warriors. And then just about here, they shift to those other same rounded columns we saw before, which indicates that this also was a large covered building at one point. And this continues all the way around. And we'll go up there and have a look. All right, so we're just making our way around here. I stopped for a little break there to get some water and have a banana and just kind of cool off a little bit because it's been a pretty hot day, and all I seem to do is sweat. So anyway, we're just up here in the far north corner of the center. It's got like the 1,000 columns, as they call it. And again, so all of these buildings, all these columns were built to support a roof that would have been over top of them. And all these buildings were sort of interconnected as well as they go down that way towards the temple. So I'm just walking around the edge here, really, where all of these other buildings used to be. And yeah, we'll circle back in a minute. But it's pretty nice and peaceful back here, I would say, if you're looking for a place to come and get away from the crowds and stuff. So up by the cenote was nice, and I would say that down here is a nice little spot as well, because there's some good shade, nice breeze, lots of little places to sit down and kind of relax a little bit. So good all around. So this is part of the original remaining front wall for one of the temples that was here. It was kind of nice because it's got some of the really intricate carvings in it along here. If you look closely, I'll try and get in a little bit closer here as well. So this wall, there was a deity that was positioned there, but if you look in closely, you can still see some of the red pigment that exists around the squares and X shapes in the wall, giving an idea of exactly like how much color there was on these walls and in the buildings at the time. And then that building would have continued back from here, and you can see there's a set of steps there that would have come down. So then you would have had the main building here, and this would have sort of been the front wall to the building itself. This should be the last piece of the area back here before we have to turn around and head back out to the main area. It's another area of this columned building section, and you can get up pretty close here, which is kind of nice. There was a note on the sign that talked about how some of these columns, this column here in particular, and there's a couple more down the other way, that were actually reinforced columns, and they speculate whether that was due to some sort of damage or instability, which would be interesting because most of the areas in the Mayan cities, especially the larger ones, they were artificially flattening out all the ground to make everything equal. And so you wonder if maybe an earthquake, possibly, or something. And so they had to be reinforced like that after suffering some damage. And so the last section over here is what was known as the market, and there's different theories as to what it was used for. Initially, the thought was that it was a marketplace where local vendors would come and display their wares for sale, but then later theories kind of went against that and said that it was not in fact a market. So I don't know if that was through a combination of excavation and archaeological digs and not finding much merchandise there. I'm not sure the reason for the change, but they do indicate that their opinion on that sort of thing has shifted over the years. Let's take a walk up here. So this building off here in the distance is off limits at the moment, but it was the original steam bath that was here. So the remnants of that building indicate, the sign says that there was 3 sections to that building. There was 2 outbuildings, and then the main steam bath room itself in the center. And I don't know if they're going to eventually restore that building or leave it as it is. But I think it'd be pretty cool to see that building get restored back to what it used to look like, because I know like the steam baths were such an important part of the indigenous people here. It was a sort of a way of purifying the body, and so yeah, that'd be kind of cool to see. So let's make our way back out from here to our last section. Just a shot of the backside here of the Castillo, just to kind of show the difference from the front side over there, where a lot of people are over there taking pictures and doing their Instagram photos and all that kind of stuff. This side to me is much more interesting because it kind of shows the different stages of the building, with some of the original stone underneath, some of the smooth stone on front, and then still some of the decorative stone here as well, to kind of show the different parts. So we're just making our way down to what I would call the southern group of buildings. There is the ossuary, there is the observatory, and a few other buildings down this way. And it's kind of a separate section to the main area up that way. And yeah, thought it'd be kind of nice. Turned out to be an incredible day. Lots of clouds, but no rain. And not as hot as other days recently, but still pretty hot. So we've made our way over to what's known as the Osario Group. And the Osario Group is 3 buildings that are in alignment, and it's a very similar layout to the main temple that's here at the El Castillo, with the platform of Venus, because over here we have the same thing. So this is platform of Venus, and we're going to walk over to the Osario temple there in a minute, but it's all very similar. Between these two, there's also a circular platform here, which remains unnamed, and it's one of the few examples of a circular structure here. Most everything was squared off. This here, as well, in alignment with the other two, is also known as the High Priest's. So you got the High Priest's temple, you've got the platform of Venus, you've got this large flat round structure, which everyone uses for a bench, I guess, here, and then you have the Osario temple just up ahead here, and you'll see what I mean by it looking pretty similar to El Castillo as well. It's a large stepped temple with stairs on all 4 sides, the large heads at the bottom. There's some discussion that these are here in alignment because there's another cenote nearby, and these were placed near that cenote for ceremonies and those types of things there as well. Alright, we're going to make our way down to the last couple of buildings here that I wanted to check out at Chichen Itza, and there's just a few minutes this way down the road, one of which I'm particularly interested in because it seems almost out of place in some ways in terms of its design and its purpose, and I believe it might be unique to the entire Mayan area as well. So let's go have a look at that next. So I'm hoping I can get a better look at it from another view, because this is one of the buildings I was most looking forward to getting up a little closer to. Looks like at one point there was probably a trail through here to walk up. This is the Red House complex, and is one of the best preserved houses or buildings in the entire Chichen Itza complex. So you can see up on the top here, there's the house up there, there was a front entrance here, and some other buildings. Now, they call it the Red House because when it was first uncovered, it had a large amount of the red paint still visible on the building, more so than anywhere else they had found. So that's what gave it its name. But as you can see here, it's roped off at the moment, so I'm hoping that walking up around the other side will get a better look at it. So let's head up that way. So yeah, some sort of good news. It's actually a little bit better of a view up this way for the Red House, which is good. So we're just going to make our way over here. So one of the other features of the Red House is that there's another pelota ball game field here. So this was the entranceway here into this yard. There's the pelota game field there, and here's a better shot over here of the Red House. So we've just come around the back side here, but there you can see the structure there at the top. It's interesting, it's got some very similar features to what we would see at Uxmal with the two separations in the building. So you've got the bottom half, which was meant to look very utilitarian. Doorways, access points, squared off corners. And then of course at the top, you've got all the intricate carvings and designs. That was a common feature in this part of the Mayan world. But yeah, exceptionally well maintained structure here. And I'm glad that I was able to get to see it this close, because that's way better. So, as part of this area, there were several other buildings found. Unfortunately, most of them were not in that great of a shape. There's one up here on the hill, which you can see there, through the trees, which I forget the name of, but we're going to see it down here on the sign, I suspect. So it's a little hard to see just because of the way that the staircase here is in front, but this was the House of the Deer, and it's given that name because the carvings on the inside of the house were of, surprise, surprise, deer. And so that was the name given to this building. Now beyond that, there's evidence here obviously of some additional buildings. You can see kind of a platform there, some structure here, but what was left here was completely destroyed. One of the things that was found in this area though were what they call the steels, and they were like intricate curved structures. I want to say tombstones, but they were kind of like that. They looked like that in terms of, they kind of tall, narrow with a rounded top and had carving on the front. And the evidence seems to indicate that the ones that were here were all destroyed, and possibly destroyed intentionally in pre-Hispanic times for whatever unknown reason. I know I say this a lot, by the way, but I'd like to point out that up here is a much quieter part of the park. I've made it down to the last section here at Chichén Itzá, and this might be one of the most impressive looking structures of the whole place, but not the one I'm most excited for. So this is what's known as the building of the nuns, or the convent, and it was called that because inside the building there was many rooms, and it reminded the Spanish of Spanish convent, and so that's where the name came from. And on one side of the building it's still fully intact with the front wall here, but over on this side you can actually see it's broken away, and you can kind of see inside a little bit. So here you can see where it's exposed and stuff in through here, and there's actually a doorway down here as well, and a doorway up at the top, and it kind of shows how many layers there were inside the building, and how many interior walls there would have been separating the structure into multiple rooms. But this thing is huge. Again, beautiful spot over here. So on this side is it's another pretty amazing looking structure. So unintentionally, or accidentally maybe is a better word for it, because the Spanish decided to name this building the convent, they decided to name this building the church, because it was directly next to that other building. It's only one room, very small, very tall, but full of intricate designs, animals. Here's another angle of the far end of the quote-unquote convent building. You can actually see there's a human sitting, looks like cross-legged, above the door here, which has another skull above it, and some Mayan glyphs. And there's a face carved in up there. You can see the nose. A couple more down here as well. Pretty amazing design on the front of this building. And then some more ruins around it here as well. And so we're going to head down to the last building of the day, and the one that I think is cooler than any other here. And maybe you can agree or disagree. That's why it's called an opinion. But to me, it's one of the coolest looking things that I've seen in pictures, that I'm excited to have a look at it now in person as well. And it's right here. I don't even have to go very far. So we've made our way over to the final stop of the day here at Chichen Itza, and the building I've been looking forward to seeing the most. And it's right here in front of me, and this is what's known as the observatory. So it is believed, as far as I know, that the observatory here at Chichen Itza is the only one of its kind in the entire Mayan Empire. And through research and archaeological work, they have determined that this center structure here with the dome was used to track the stars, the path of Venus, and other things. And at the very top, it's very hard to see, and I'll try and get a zoomed in picture with my other camera. There were very small windows at the top, and they were used specifically to track Venus, which was always one of the brightest things in the sky. This is a huge building with a massive flat top structure to it. Some columns out front, which would probably indicate that there was a smaller building here at one point. And then the main dome itself at the top. So this observatory building dates back to about 906 AD, and they know that because there was a marker found inside the building that had that date stamped on it, so it's at least back to that date. And you can see how open and flat this area is, so it would be ideal as a location for an observatory to look at the stars in the sky. It's also fairly far away from the main part of Chichen Itza, where the other buildings are. So it would have been a nice place to be sort of secluded and, an opportunity to check those things out. But just a remarkable building, again, because for me it's the uniqueness of it, the fact that it's the only one of its kind, the fact that it shows, in many ways how advanced the Maya were in terms of their astronomy and information that they had, using that type of information for their calendars and other parts of their civilization. So this is where I wanted to end up today, and it has worked out perfectly. A couple lizards up there, looks like they're having a snack. But as you walk around this way, before I wrap this up, you can see the monumental size of the structure, especially where it had to support that dome on top as well. And just incredible, just amazing. So that is going to do it for Chichen Itza. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and a comment below. Maybe let me know that you were here. Don't forget to subscribe as well. And remember, life is short. Wander. I'll see you in the next video.